Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butch-Chester. You know what I like to do on my show. I want to, say it with me, enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want you fired up about my guest. We will be speaking with Bishop today, and he's written the book, My Journey to America, From Bastard to a Bishop. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Bishop. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Dr. Angela, thank you so much. It's good to be with you.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to talk to you about your book, but as is tradition here, we always give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves to those folks out there that may not know about your book yet. So first question for you, Bishop, is can you tell us a little bit about you? What makes you you?
Oh my God, it's what God has done for me. I'm originally from Jamaica, and I'm a bishop now overseeing 12 churches.
Now, being an author, is that something that you have always wanted to do, or did you find that life presented the opportunity and you simply had to share your journey?
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, never even dream of it. It is what life presents, and surely, I just said, I have to share this journey.
Absolutely. And, you know, I love how God really allows us to grow and expand and to become all that He has called us to be when we are obedient and we do exactly what He tells us to do. You know, that's why I cannot wait to talk to you about your book, because your journey is amazing, and there's someone out there that really needs to hear what has happened to you. So with that being said, the first question I want to ask about your book is about the title. Now, you're already giving us a little bit of a glimpse of what the storyline is going to be, but I have to ask, the title itself, did that come to you first, or did it develop out of your writings? How did you determine that would be the title of the book?
It developed out of the writing. After I wrote the book, I was thinking about my journey to America, and then because of the way the book was written by me, you know, my son suggested to me, Daddy, you know, from bastard to bishop. And I said, that sounds very good.
Now, when you were in the process of writing, did you find that you needed to have a particular environment or atmosphere? I know sometimes people need to kind of take themselves away from the hustle and bustle of the day. They need it to be quiet, and they may write first thing in the morning or at the end of the day. What was that experience like for you?
For me, it was in the middle of the day, alone, close the door, and just sit down. It flows. For me, it just flows. When I started writing, everything just started to come back. All the memory from my youth just started to flow right back to me.
You know, there is always a story in someone who is from another country who transitions and moves to the States. And I tell people we should listen to the story, because many times we forget or we're unaware of what it's like really to be here in the States. I know I was born and raised on the East Coast, and then moving to the West Coast, that was an experience. It was a little bit of a culture shock. So I can only imagine someone coming from another country, you know, that it is a little bit of a shock and needing to adjust and get here. So thank you for sharing your story. If I forget to say that, thank you for sharing your story.
My pleasure.
It's a pleasure. When it comes to the ideal reader, I'd like to ask the question this way. I give gifts for high school graduation, I give them something that they want or something that they need, but I also always give them a really good book, something that's going to make them contemplate the future, ponder, what's next in life. With that being said, would you feel that your book is appropriate for someone who's also in high school, or do you think perhaps college age and older?
I think high school started very early, Doc, from high school to college, all the way up.
Mm-hmm. And that is so good. That could be the motivation that you need to say, hey, he did it. I think I can do it too, and to keep moving forward. I love it. Now, would you say that your book is written in a way of a traditional novel, in that a person should read it simply from cover to cover, page after page? Or did you kind of break it down into chapters or sections where your goal should be to complete that section or chapter before moving on to the next one?
Yeah. So I did it by chapter. Yes, that's what I did. So I wanted to start from when I first left Jamaica, and then, move on to my marriage, move on to bring my family to America, and then, move on to the ministry.
Now, as someone who is also in ministry, I want to just touch a little bit on that and say, did you always know that you would be in ministry? Have you felt that call on your life for quite some time, or is that something that as you matured as an individual, you realized that God was also calling you into the ministry?
I feel the call from I was a youth. When I was 10-year-old, 11-year-old, I was playing church. I played church back home in Jamaica. I called the family together, and in the evening, and we just sit outside, and I was the preacher. What am I preaching? I don't know, but I was the preacher. I would take them to the river to baptize them. So there was a calling on my life then.
I love it. And it's really interesting because out of all of the people that I personally know that are in ministry, I would say about 75% of them, there's a story that says, oh yeah, we knew that they were going to go into ministry. Absolutely. They have similar stories. It's like they were preaching on the corner in the backyard, or you would line, for many times with girls, it's like we would line up all of our dolls or our little stuffed animals, and it's like, okay, we're going to have women's ministry today, and it was always something like that. So I love that. So for that person who notices that their child is doing that, do not discourage them. Encourage them to move through that. Now, I would like to ask you about the overall message that you want to make sure that the reader gets from your book. Like I said, I'm always encouraged from anyone who shares their story from one place to another place, wherever that place happens to be. Is there one thing that you want to make sure that your readers understand having completed your book?
Yes, Doc. Thank you for that question. One of the most important things I want my reader to understand, that God can do it for you. Don't matter who you are, where you're from, He can do it.
And you can. And it's amazing that sometimes just having someone remind you that isn't in your family, or someone that you don't know, a perfect stranger, just reminding you or giving you that confirmation, is sometimes that little extra nudge that you need to go on and step out in faith. So I love it. Now, as a bishop, you have so many responsibilities, as many ministry leaders do, but you are over 12 different churches. So I have to ask, what motivates you to keep moving forward, not only as a bishop, but also as an author? Because, we understand that you're still delivering sermons, you're still, leading, being a leader, and all of those things. So what motivates you to keep moving forward?
Thank you, Doc, for that question. The motivation comes from helping people. Right now, Doc, I'm in Belize now, 2 churches there. That's what motivates me. That wanted to help somebody, wanted to see, the need of people and try my best to help them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have never had the privilege of being a missionary, and I say that because every missionary that I've ever spoken to, they've always gone to a country that really and truly needs that person there for that particular time period. And for you to not only be willing and able, but to allow God to continue to use you is such a beautiful thing. So thank you for taking care of our brothers and sisters in Christ in Belize and making sure that they continue to be covered there. I love it. I love it. Now, when you were writing, was there any particular part of your story that you found to be a little harder to share? Be it that it caused you to miss someone or to miss a particular place, or it may have been harder because you hadn't talked about that in quite some time and you really had to kind of think about it again, but it was a vital part of the story, anything like that. And was there any part that was harder to write than any other?
Yes. The part of the story that was very hard for me in writing was the part with me and my dad. Not being, there for me when I was a child. It was very hard for me to really articulate everything. There's certain things I have to hold back, but it was very painful also, Doctor. It was very painful for me to express that feeling.
And thank you for sharing that, because I think as we look over our society as a whole, there are so many of our young people that for whatever the reason, they are growing up in single-parent homes, and many times, be it that it's, divorce, or their parents were never married, or a parent has passed on, or they've, moved to a different country or a different side of the country. Children still feel that when that parent is missing. If we think about it, if we work too long and we all live in the same household, children will still say, Daddy, you work too long. Mommy, you're always gone. They don't appreciate the fact that you're missing in action. They don't care about the money. They don't care about any of that stuff. They really just want your presence. So Thank you. Someone may read that part of your book and say, wow, I didn't know that my son or daughter was experiencing that. Now, Bishop, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And how do we stay in contact with you?
My book is called My Journey to America, From Bastard to Bishop. And you can find it on Amazon. And also you can find it through my publisher. And also you can hit me up on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. So you can open up on Facebook only.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butch-Chester. My guest today is Bishop, and we are talking about his book, My Journey to America, From Bastard to Bishop. Bishop, my next question for you is one that I like to phrase this way. We know that there are going to be some hater nation out there, right? There's always going to be someone saying, yeah, but what makes you so special? So I like to give people an opportunity to say why they believe, I like to give authors an opportunity to say why they believe that their book is special or different. So Bishop, can you tell us what makes your book a little bit different from some of the other books that we may find out there?
Well, I think my book is unique for a 17-year-old got saved and then leave Jamaica at the age of 18 to come to the United States in 1979, the art of the jug season, remain a virgin until I marry at 21. That's a special thing, what God can do in our lives. And then, not only that, I return and bring my whole family to America, 6 sisters and 2 brothers, 8 of them, and myself make 9. So my mom also was a part of the trip. So it makes it a special book to read and to see what God can do in a person's life. And it also would help fathers to love their children even better.
Bishop, God bless you for bringing your family with you. I think when people think, oh, they brought their family, they think probably a wife, a kid or 2. But no, when you say you brought your family, you brought your family. And I don't know if folks here in the States understand exactly what that means. I have a few friends who have become naturalized, and they say, the process is not easy. It is purposefully difficult, to make sure that you have dotted all of your I's and crossed all of your T's. But it is also not cheap. It is costly to bring people to this country, and I don't think that people realize that. When you're doing it properly and you're getting all your papers in order and all of that. So Bishop, I tell you, just even though it's retrospect and it happened a while ago, God bless you for doing that and bringing them here. Absolutely, there's nothing like family to me. I am so big on family, so thank you so much for that.
Yes. Definitely.
Now, when it comes to helping the next generation, because that's what you have helped do, be it with your relocating your family here to the States, or writing your book, or following the call that God has placed on your life and becoming bishop. You have been that leader, and you continue to be. What do you believe is something that the next generation needs to do, that they don't need to take this particular task lightly? How can we reassure them, but also guide them at the same time?
Yes, Doctor, thank you so much for that question. What we as elders, and pastors, laying that foundation to always remind them to give back. So important to give back. Give back out of nothing, but give back. If you can't give money, you can give the love. You can help someone. And I always tell people that what I've done, I'm doing it for my generation. Me, my son, my grandson, my granddaughters. I'm doing it for them. Continue on. That is, see what I've done out of nothing, but from a pure heart, and wanted to bless others. So as a nation, as a people, we are to always think of what we can do to help somebody else.
Always think of what you can do to help someone else. I love that. Now, I want to kind of shift gears just a little bit, and I want to ask you questions from the point of view of from our aspiring authors out there. That's one of the many emails that I get tend to be from those folks that are trying to write a book and love when successful authors give advice. So my first question along that vein is, when it comes to the process, many times you don't know what you don't know until you get to that particular spot in the process. Is there anything that you wish you would have known sooner, before you got started, that would have made that entire journey of from writing the first sentence to getting the book published? Any piece of advice in there you wish you would have received that you could pass on to aspiring authors now?
Definitely. It's to truly, do your research, and also, after you pay, you do your publishing, what next? How you going to get the book out there? That's something that I did not done well on. And, since it's my first book, but I hope that, those who are inspired to do so, young, old, middle age, is to do your research completely. Ask the question, what next after this? You am I paying a publisher, but what next? How am I going to get the book out there, published out there? How much is it going to cost? So you can count the cost and know what it's going to cost for you to move forward with that book.
And that was going to be my next question, and thank you for the perfect segue there. When it is time to publish the book, every author has to decide if they're going to self-publish or if they're going to use a publishing house. How did you determine which way was going to be best for you?
That was easy, Doctor. Thank you so much. That was very, very easy, Dr. Chester. When I look at it and I said, I do not want to go around and sell books. I wanted, a publisher to do the, kind of help me to do that work for me. So it was very easy for me, because I said, well, if I know a few people, yes, but is it that everybody going to buy your book? No. So having it go out to the wider world where other people who can hear it and wanted to read it, to see, something that it can help them in their struggle, like, it inspired me to write it. They can be inspired also to do
it. And you said a really important thing there, and that is everyone is not going to buy your book. I know that a lot of people are shocked when I say that, and it's like, I hate to be the first person to tell you, but just because you've done something, your friends and sometimes your family members are not going to necessarily, break their necks to go get your product or service. Right? That's just the nature of people. And I remember the first time I did an interview, Bishop, and they asked the question, what was something that you realize now that you didn't know in your 20s? And that's what I said, is that everyone I know is not going to be excited for what I'm doing now. Everyone's not going to be excited. It's like, oh, she's on radio? Good for her. But there's also some folks that are like, she's on the radio. So you are so right there. Oh my, that's a great piece of advice. Learn to handle that part of it as well. Yeah. Now, for so many people, their goal is to be as large of an author as they can, to produce as many books as they can. Perhaps they want to be on the New York bestsellers list, or they want to sell or author 10 books, whatever it is, hopes and dreams with being an author. But Bishop, you do so much. You already have quite a full plate. So I want to ask this question, understanding that you also are a bishop. Like, I'm not just calling you bishop, but you are a bishop. With that being said, where do you see your life as far as the author role is concerned? Do you wish to author more books? Is there more writings to come later?
Yes, there is one more that's how I have it felt in my spirit. There's one more. I don't know anything behind that. I have people asking me already for the follow-up for this book, which I was moving forward with another one, I'm close to the storyline of me and my dad, and forgiveness. But yes, there's one more in the work.
And it's so funny that people always ask, it's like, give us more, and I don't think they know, it takes time. You don't just think of it overnight. You really do have to write the book, so it does take a while. And with COVID and all of that having been a part of our lives for the past few years, it seems like things have moved forward, but they've been a little slower sometimes, simply because we haven't been able to do the all that we would have normally have been able to do. So we definitely have to take all of that into consideration as well.
Yes,
now,
definitely.
I know that, as someone who works in ministry, that is a full-time calling on our lives.
Yes.
Someone asked me one time, and it's like, well, Dr. Angela, when are you not Dr. Angela? And it's like, well, when I'm fixing dinner. I'm honey, I'm mom, when I'm washing clothes, it's, I'm definitely, the laundry lady. It's like when you do other stuff, that is a part of who we are. But many times, ministry work does consume our time. When someone needs your assistance, they need it, and they need it then, no matter what time of day or night it is. So a shout out to all of the ministry couples out there who we're holding it down and making it happen. But with that being said, when you have time to relax and have some time to yourself, if there's someone who has just gotten started with their own ministry, what are some suggestions that you could have for them to make sure that they do stay balanced and that they don't become burned out by ministry life, because it can be so demanding?
Thank you again, Doctor, for that question. You hit the nail right there, because you can get burned out. I think I'm close to that stage of being burned out. Let me give you a big surprise. I still work a full-time job for 31 years, and being a bishop for 7 churches. Use my vacation to go to all the different churches in Jamaica to lead. One of the things that's important, is that you make sure that you don't walk into ministry because you want to go into ministry. Make sure you got a calling. That's one of the more important things, is to make sure that the calling is upon your life. And then it's very hard, and this is tough for me, but we have to find time. One of my sisters always tell me that. You need to find some time. You need to get some rest. Because I don't know what they call rest. Prayer. This one calling, that one calling, doing wedding, doing all of those. So it's very hard. I walk as a zombie at times, because everybody wants you to fulfill what they want, but nobody consider that you need to get a little rest. So for the other people that come in and those that call for ministry, is to carve out that time. Don't worry about what people think or what they want to say. Carve out some time for yourself. I learned that very, very hard.
I could not agree with you more. You have to do that. It is not suggested, it is mandatory, because we have to, because at the end of the day, we get tired just like everyone else, and we need to have that family time or that spouse time, or not selfish, but that me time. As ladies, we still need to go get our nails done or go get our hair done, or just have that time with our our best friends, and just be girly girl for a little while and recharge. So definitely I love it. Well, Bishop, thank you so much for spending time with us here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I have enjoyed my time with you, but we are out of time. Before I let you go, though, could you please remind everyone what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And, of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Thank you, Dr. Angela. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I enjoy myself with you also. I'm looking forward to talk to you even more. The book is My Journey to America, from a Bastard to Bishop. And again, you can find it on Amazon, but don't forget, from Bastard to Bishop. So you're going to find it. Amazon and also Exhibit, which is my publisher, or anywhere book is sold. You can go on the website.
I love it. Thank you again, Bishop, for being on the show today.
Thank you, Dr. Chapter. I appreciate you.
And listeners, thank you as well for spending time with us here. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to spend it with me, and I appreciate that. I hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you today. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me here for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You guys know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want you fired up about my guest. Her name is Margaret Coan, and we're talking about her book, Sacred Listening, From Fear to Love. I know, great title. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Margaret. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. Now, as is tradition around here, we always give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves. There may be a few folks out there that are unfamiliar with your work. So, first question to you, Margaret, is tell us a little bit about yourself. What makes you, you?
Wow. Well, what makes me me? I just love life. I love dance and music and writing and hiking, and I don't know. I'm a person who's very engaged with life, and in particular, because we're going to be talking about my book today, writing has always been like my life raft. It's been my place to talk to God. So that's what I have to say at the moment.
Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that life presented the opportunity?
It's a combination, I think, of both. As I say, it was always a place where I felt safe in a world where sometimes I didn't feel so safe, and writing was a place where I could express myself safely. I remember in high school my teacher encouraging me to write, and then in college the same. But I think my lack of self-confidence, just in general, sort of I didn't go anywhere with it. But then when I got a little bit older, it just started to kind of draw me closer and closer, and I took a lot of writing classes and then ended up writing this book over time. And I just adore writing. It's just fun.
Now, about the title of your book, Sacred Listening, From Fear to Love. Love the title of your book. How did you determine that that should be the way that you would present your work?
A lot of this book, I will say I felt very much like a pencil, and I was being very guided. At the time, I wasn't so aware of that I was a medium, but I am very much now. And so much of it was guided through my spiritual guides and guardians. And it also resulted from the experience of writing it and why I wrote it and how I wrote it. And I myself was learning what sacred listening was and then wanted to share it with others.
Now, perfect segue to my next question, and I have to ask, how do you understand or how do you explain what sacred listening is in your book? How is that addressed?
The way I would describe sacred listening, it's a listening to one's self. I would say one's heart, one's soul, one's spirit, whatever words kind of ring true to you. And it's a practice because our lives are often so busy and distracted that we're not paying attention, I think often, or I wasn't until I started to become more of a listener, to what was really going on inside of me and what was going on in my world and around me as well, and what was important to me. To me, it is sacred in the sense that it is listening to my real self, and also listening to my higher self, which I happen to call God. So that's how I would describe it.
I like that answer. Now, for someone who says, I like that answer too, I think I want to pick up a copy of the book. Kudos, everyone, kudos. A few disclaimers. One, everyone knows I'm going to say any question that I ask you, we do not expect for you to give like the ending to the story. You know, like we don't expect for you to give it all to us. You have to pick up a copy of the book to get all of the bits and pieces. So don't worry about me asking you a question like that. But I do want to ask about how to properly read the book. And I ask that because for so many authors, they will present it in a way that perhaps you should read it like a devotional, where you read just a few pages and put it down, and then you pick it up the next day, having digested what you've read the prior day. Others may do it in a way where it's done by sections or chapters, and your goal should be to complete that section or chapter before moving on to the next. Did you write your book in a way that we should follow any particular reading plan or format to make sure that we get the best or the most out of the book?
That's such an amazing question. I love that question. So I'm going to describe it. It's going to take a little bit. When I wrote the book, there is a very clear intention of a beginning, middle, and an end. So I began with the trust, and then I move on to openness, then silence, feelings, healing, and then at the end, wisdom. So there is a sequential order to it. However, having said that, and having continued to grow spiritually, I'm learning that what each reader needs to do is, well, first of all, it's also designed, it's a very experiential book. This is a book of questions, because I believe that it's living in the questions we discover. So my book isn't there for giving you answers. My book is there to encourage you to ask yourself questions. And in that asking and in that thinking about discovering more about you and about the world and your world and who you really are. So it is a book of questions. And I feel you can, and many of my readers have expressed to me, they'll just randomly flip it and there's the page that they need to be thinking about or reading about or questioning about. So it can be sequential if that's what works for you. It depends on each reader because we're all very different in how we interact with our worlds. And it can be random. So it really is what works best for you. Like, for instance, you might be going through something where it's very emotional and you want to focus on the chapter on feeling. And you don't have to go and do trust and openness. So it really is designed in a way to be very fluid and to work best for whatever the reader is wanting it for in their life.
I like that answer, that it is appropriate for both. That is so wonderful that you can go to that section when you're experiencing that particular thing. Or even if you share, a little snippet of the book because you have your best friend might be going through a little something, to be able to do that, and it's appropriate and true for that moment. Very mindful of you. I like it. Now, would you say that the book is, I've explained the reason why I asked this question, so I'll give a little bit of background. I am one of those people, upon graduation, high school, college, doesn't matter. When you graduate, I give you a book. I give you a something, but I also give you a book. And I love being able to plant that little seed of inspiration in the mind of the receiver to, encourage them to move forward. With that being said, would you say that your book is appropriate for someone as young as high school, or would you say perhaps college age and older is a little bit more appropriate?
Oh, I would even say middle school.
Ah, okay.
I would even encourage middle school. Yeah, my questions are very basic and simple. But you can go as deep as you want with them. I tend to be a person that dives very deep. That's just my nature. Yes, I honestly, I would love it if middle school kids were asking these questions to themselves and to their parents and to each other. So yeah, I would, and I might even be bold enough to say it could go even younger than that. But certainly for middle school, high school, and college, I think. And the other thing I haven't said about the book that I really like is each chapter has a mandala for you to color, because as I say, I'm also an artist. So I designed each of the mandalas and I colored them, but I made them black and white outlines for the reader to color them as fits their spirit and where they are. So it also has a little bit of art in there for you.
How wonderful. That is so amazing. I like that. I like that idea. I would be, if I have a copy of the book, just sharing my little 2 cents worth, I would copy that page and I would color it for my moment. But then 6 months later, I would make another copy of that particular one, and then I would color it. And then I would try to go back and see how have I evolved, or how have I dealt with the past versus the present, and see how am I expressing myself in that time period, and just or do it every quarter, like every 90 days you would go and color it and just keep them and just put it away, and then at the end of the year maybe just look and say, oh my goodness, look at how I've expressed myself on this topic throughout the year. That is such a beautiful way to get people to grow, Margaret. I love it. Thank you for adding that to the book. I don't think anyone's done that. I don't think I've talked to anyone
I love what
that.
you just did with it. What you just shared just was like, wow, how cool is that? I love that, and I'm going to share that because I do groups with my book all the time. I do sacred listening groups. Oh, that's something I guess I should have shared. Really, a lot of how this was also created, I worked at hospice, and I was working with the bereaved. And it was through that experience that this book was developed, and I started to use it with my groups. And I called the groups Sacred Listening Groups. And it was the first time that hospice center had done those groups. And it really was very successful. It was really quite a wonderful experience. And I also worked a lot with the homeless. So I use it in that. But I now do these groups, and it's for anyone. And that's another thing. It can be used for people who are healers or working with those, group leaders or counselors or whatever. They can certainly use this book if they wanted to help facilitate groups as well. It gives a good guidepost and guidelines. It gives a structure. It gives a structure to where to begin.
Absolutely. And I tell people that one of my gifts as a pastoral counselor is, as people are talking, I see things in picture form, and it's like, wow, she's presenting this in a when you say that it's presented in black and white, and it's like, isn't that how we we try to make things, like we try to force things to be very black or white, where life is full of so many colors. Like it's filled with so many different hues and saturation points and all of these beautiful things. So it's like sometimes you may be pale yellow, but you could also be vivid red. You might be, a beautiful blue, like sky blue, but you could also be almost like a magenta. So it's like, express yourself. I saw the beauty when you simply said that you included it. It was like, oh my gosh, that could be so beautiful for whatever you're going through at a particular time, and to gauge your growth there. I love it. I love it. Well, Margaret, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you please remind everyone, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Yes. So the title of the book is Sacred Listening, From Fear to Love, and you can get it on Amazon or any other bookstore, any other place that sells books, yes, any other place you can buy books. And you can stay in contact with me. I am on Facebook, but not really as an author yet. I don't have my own site, but I am on Facebook.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for a Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. My guest today is Margaret Coan, and we're talking about her book, Sacred Listening, From Fear to Love. My next question for you, Margaret, is, and you kind of touched on it in the last half, and that is you have a section or a chapter that talks about trust. Why did you feel that it was important to include this particular subject?
Well, and the reason I chose it as my first chapter was because it seems to me that one needs to ponder and question, what is it we trust in? Where are we planted? Or are we planted at all? And so, because for me, trust is like the roots of a tree. And if I don't know where my roots are planted, it's going to be awfully hard to navigate life in a healthy way. So for me, trust, like I say, I think the visual for me is the roots of a tree, and I think it is important to really ponder. Sometimes we might not even know what we trust in or what we don't trust. So I think trust is kind of enables the tree to flower and blossom and drop its leaves and have every season that it has, because it is firmly planted somewhere. And for me, that's in God. And but that may not be for every reader that engages in the book.
As a pastoral counselor, trust is definitely one of the subjects that come up in conversation. It is a big one, so I'm so glad that you did take some time to include it there. Now, you also share about silence. Most people, I would say that they don't always think of silence in a positive way. They may think of the silent treatment, where their significant other isn't speaking with them, or being put like in a time-out situation where there's silence and they've been removed from friends, not realizing that many times people love silence, like many authors do, when it comes time to write, so that you're able to hear better. How do you address silence, and why was it important to include this in your book as well?
Wow, I think silence, well, like all of these chapters are big subjects, but for me, silence is like the visual, as you can tell, I'm a very visual person, is like a freshly fallen snow. There's some amazing beauty to it, and silence, I think we fear silence in our culture because our culture is very busy and very noisy, and because the other examples you gave, sometimes silence can be used in a very unloving way. So it's not always a loving experience or an experience that opens oneself. But the silence that I try to point toward in the book and move toward for people is the silence of the soul, as I would say it, the inner self, that the going deep, and growing does require being willing to be silent, because otherwise, when you think about it, if we're moving so busy in our world, how can we hear what's living deep in our hearts or our souls? It's very difficult. So it's learning to be comfortable in the silence. And I think for most people that I've met, they're very uncomfortable in silence, at least at the beginning, because our world is not quiet. And so it feels awkward, it feels uncomfortable, and guess what? Some things arise that you don't want to experience. But it's important to experience, meaning pain and grief. And it's very important to learn to be comfortable with those parts of ourselves. And silence does, when one learns to be, it does welcome that, but when we're trying to not welcome it, silence then becomes uncomfortable, I think.
You said a very important thing, and I'm sure that many of the folks that are listening that are visiting here in the States will agree, and that is that we are very loud here in the States.
Yes.
And people say that all the time. It's like, God bless those Americans. They're just so loud and boisterous, and they don't even realize they're being so loud, and they take up so much space because they're just so loud. And you're right. It is very true. I think that our culture does not teach us to be how to be safe, how to be comforted, how to be strong in that silence. Where I think that some other cultures even teach children, how to be reassured in sitting quietly and being still, that it's okay, to do that. Where I think we so many times it's like we're trying to distract ourselves from another distraction, but not sitting quietly. And then you touch on another point, and that is as we grow and learn, that you start to appreciate it. I think that with many of the people that I've even talked to as authors, they found that getting up really early in the morning, or perhaps even staying up a little bit later, people will say things like, it's before my house wakes up, it's before the world wakes up, and I have that silent time to just enjoy my coffee or just to have my meditation. And you're right. I think as we mature in ourselves, we understand the importance of that silence that you're talking about. So yeah, you definitely hit on a good one there. Now, I want to ask about feelings. Again, as a counselor, feelings, people say, well, Dr. Angela, I don't feel that this is right, or someone has hurt my feelings. How do you address feelings and emotions?
Well, I would say they're the language of the soul. And I would say that one of the things that I've observed through my experience of helping people, and also my own journey actually, is that when we resist the more difficult feelings, the feelings of grief and sadness and being hurt, we really are resisting really important parts of ourselves that have so much to teach us about, what is healthy, what isn't healthy, and what is loving, what isn't loving, because I think sometimes we can be very confused about that as well. So I think our feelings are the most important language that we have, frankly. This is not to say I'm not a logical person and don't think logic is also important, but I think we're way too heavy on that. Again, in this culture, we're way too much about the intellect, and I think really, frankly, we're souls. And I think it's so important to, again, learn how to be comfortable with all of our feelings, the joy, the sorrow, the laughter, the tears, all of it. Because if you try to cut off one part of it, you're cutting off a whole part of yourself, and the soul can't do that. It actually can't. We think it can, but it can't. It cannot do that. It needs to be open and vulnerable at all times for all the feelings.
Hmm. I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. Now, one thing that I think that many people tend to have a tough go at is healing from past experiences, or I don't want to lump them all into traumas because it may not have necessarily been traumatic, but there was a particular something that happened to them, and they feel that they need to heal from that particular experience. Um, some people are simply trying to continue their growth, their spiritual growth, their physical growth, just trying to be the best person that they can possibly be. You talk about healing. Not some people will say, well, I don't need to heal, but then I would ask a question just as a therapist saying, or do you not realize that you need to heal? How do you address, because sometimes we don't know that we're doing something that could be harmful to ourselves or to someone else in a reaction or a thing that we do, but it could be offensive to another person, or it could be causing someone to feel something less than positive. But your intention may not be that way, but that's how people are perceiving it or understanding it. So with that being said, how do you address this concept of healing, and how does one know when they're on the proper journey to being a better or a more healed individual?
Wow, I think what you've said so much, everything you've said is wonderful. Because one of the things that I really paid attention to is you said some people don't think they need to heal. And I think that can be a real problem right there, and that is often true. They think, well, okay, my childhood wasn't perfect, but it wasn't that bad. Really it wasn't that bad, and I'm going to just move on and continue. And I am an example of that, and it created a lot of really bad consequences, to be quite frank. Yeah. So what I've come to understand now, after much of life experience and a lot of resistance to healing, in a way, ironically, because I've always been a healer, so it's sort of interesting. But and that is, and I'm going to read a quote, not because I like it, but I just love it. It's in the back of my book. It says, healing may not be so much about getting better as about letting go of everything that isn't you, and all the expectations and all the beliefs, and becoming who you are. And for me, that is what I would describe it's like letting go of all people's opinions of me, all my expectations of who I thought I needed to be for others or for myself, who my parents thought I had to be, who society says I have to be, who my religion says I have to be, and really peeling those layers into discovering, but who was I created to be uniquely? Because one of the things that blows me away about the holy design is that every snowflake is unique. I don't know if you all realize that, but every single snowflake is unique. And as a child, that always, always blew me away. And as a person, I now understand every soul is unique. And that is extraordinary. That is extraordinary. So it is so important to unveil, it's an unveiling, who you are, and not who everyone wants you to be, including society. So, and I think it's a challenge. I think it's a real challenge. I think it takes great courage, actually, interestingly enough, to be willing to discover who you are. Because often you have to let go of other people's expectations or demands and then stand alone, which I've had to do, and it's not easy. But it is so worth it. Because that's what the divine created us to be, So I think of healing as that, as an unveiling of who we're not.
Oh my goodness, yes, just yes to everything you said. Absolutely, yes. And it's so interesting because it leads me to my next question, and I want to kind of ask this twofold as well. And that's, you also talk about wisdom in the book, and of course it is always important to talk about wisdom and how do we gain wisdom, how do we retain the wisdom that we've achieved. But I want to also ask from a personal perspective, do you think that the capacity in which you operate as being someone who is a bereavement counselor, do you think that wisdom that you have gained has helped you talk about the subject of wisdom?
Wisdom's an interesting one, right? Because, well, all of these subjects are. Let's start here, which is what I've always believed. All of our learning is experiential. So I can talk to you about wisdom or healing or feeling or silence or God or anything, but until I've had a personal experience of it, I don't know it. So while I love reading, and I'm an author, and I love books, I'm very clear that what the book does is point me toward. That's why this book I like a lot, because it's about questions, right? So it's an opening process. It's not a book of answers for you. It's a book of questions for you. And because it's in your own personal quest and experiences that you gain wisdom. That's how I think of wisdom. It's, have you really learned it? Have you experienced it? And now you can say, yes, now I understand this particular thing. But at the same time, I would say the wiser I get, the more I know so little. So it's an interesting word, and I think it's I guess one thing I would say, I just opened my book at random page, and it says, wisdom is what is left after we've run out of personal opinions.
I like that.
That just flipped the book. I mean, it just happened to flip out there for me. What can I say? But I thought, wow, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. Definitely something that you could post on social media. Somebody needs to read that. I love it. But you are so right on that aspect, and I think that for so many people, trying to understand one's neighbor, and I use that in the very large sense sometimes of not just the person living next to you, but perhaps your community or even globally. Understanding one's neighbor, I think, can be difficult for so many people because they haven't had that personal experience, so they don't know the truth of what the other person's wisdom and experience and all of that is. So I love how you kind of knitted that together there. And if you haven't had that experience, you may not have that wisdom, but it doesn't make it any less wise. I love how you've put that together. Thank you so much for that. Now, we are just about out of time, but I wanted to ask you one last question, and that is, for anyone who picks up a copy of this book, you are giving such great advice through the questions that you ask, because you're causing each person to really explore and to dig deep within themselves to pull out the answer that is most true and most authentic. With that being said, what is the best piece of advice that you can give to anyone that may be listening today that just needs a little bit of encouragement or just a little bit of inspiration to keep moving forward despite what they see, but they know that they have been purposed for a something?
Wow. I encourage everybody to be a scientist and to discover who you are, and it does just, all you need, it's very simple. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's very simple. You just need to be open and willing to learn something you don't know yet. So it requires letting go of thinking you already know the answer. And sometimes that's really hard for us because sometimes we're very attached to our particular answers or our particular understandings or our particular experience. And so I think the more you know yourself and your higher self, the more you will understand everybody else. because it's just an automatic thing. Because as you begin to uncover yourself and have more compassion for yourself and understanding, it just transfers to everybody else. That's certainly what I have been experiencing.
I love it. I love it. Well, Margaret, thank you so much for coming on and sharing about your book. But before I let you go, can you please remind everyone one last time, what is the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Yes. It is called Sacred Listening from Fear to Love, and you can get it on Amazon or any other place that sells books. And you can keep in touch with me on Facebook.
Thank you again, Margaret, for being a guest here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Thank you so much. I have so enjoyed our conversation. Truly, I have. Thank you.
I have as well. Thank you. And listeners, I hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you again today. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone.